University of York. This is the Research Room.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome back to the Research Room with me, Lucy Ather.
And me, Janine Healy.
And today in the Research Room, we're joined by the team from the SWHSI-II project. We've got Catherine Arundel, Sam Swan and Sabeen Zahra with us. Welcome to the Research Room. So just to get started, could you introduce yourselves for us?
So I can start. I'm Catherine Arundel. I am a Senior Research Fellow at York Trials Unit and was the Trial Manager for SWHSI-II.
Brilliant. Welcome. Sam?
I'm Sam Swan. I'm a Trial Support Officer at York Trials Unit. I've been here for 3 years and I've worked on a couple of trials. I've worked on this surgical wound trial and I'm now doing a surgical trial.
Brilliant. And Sabeen, now Sabeen, you're on Zoom, so this is the first time we've done Zoom on our podcast, so you might sound a little bit different to the others, but welcome to the Research Room.
Thank you. So I'm Sabeen Zahra and I was one of the trial coordinator on SWHSI-II trial. And I have been in the unit actually for more than over the past 4 years now. Oof, time flies by. Research interests are vitamin D, musculoskeletal health, aging, and researching ethnic groups.
Brilliant. Well, welcome. So you're here to talk about the SWHSI-II project. So just to start, what is the full title of your project?
So it's Surgical Wounds Healing by Secondary Intention 2. It's not anything more exciting.
Surgical Wounds Healing by Secondary Intention 2. Okay. And it's a 2. Is that because did you do a pilot?
We had a
study?
pilot study as part of a programme grant before this that sort of led into the main trial.
Okay. So that's why it's number 2.
Most of the time research projects sort of have they have a long name, don't they? But they have a little short name.
Yeah.
And we do like a little competition. Yeah.
So your short name is SWHSI-II. What do we think of that? You don't look like you love it. I guess it's quite catchy, I think.
It is actually. It's nice to say, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so
it's quite hard to spell, though.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you get this all the time. I would spell it the sort of I, S and H.
Yeah, with a swish.
Yeah, I'd spell it, like swish.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Yeah, it isn't. So that's the only thing, isn't it?
That's
really?
my only problem with it.
Yeah. Other than that, you have gone for the names, which is
Which
good.
you like.
Yes,
you
I do like
a
that.
acronym.
I do, yes.
Yeah.
I think it's because I can't spell. It's my problem, I think.
What would you give it out of 10?
Oh, you've always asked me. No, I'm going to ask you.
Oh, I'll go first. Okay. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10.
Yeah. I'll give it a 7.
Okay, 2 7s.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
That's good, isn't it? Yeah. So in a nutshell, can you describe your project? What's it all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So SWHSI-II, it was looking at different sorts of wound care treatments, wound dressings for patients who have what we call surgical wounds healing by secondary intention. So those are where after an operation, the surgeons can't stitch or staple a wound back together and they leave it open intentionally to heal from the bottom upwards, completely open. Or sometimes a wound has been stitched or stapled together and then it breaks open at some point and then it's left like that to heal again without being sort of refixed. It was, dressings and treatments or dressings for that particular sort of wound.
Oh. I didn't realise wounds were ever left open. But yeah, is that quite a common thing to do?
It's more common than you think. So the earlier sort of project that led into this sort of found that they were pretty common compared to what we thought before. There's a number of reasons why you might leave the wound open. For example, if there's infection present, then it's not clinically the best thing to do to close a wound up. And sometimes, like I say, they do just break open, unfortunately, and for whatever reason, then it's decided to be left open
rather than stitched or stapled.
Yeah.
Okay, and you were looking at a new kind of dressing, was it?
It wasn't a new dressing. So we were evaluating a dressing called negative pressure wound therapy, which has been around since the early 90s and was increasingly being used in the NHS to treat these sorts of wounds, but without any evidence really to suggest that it actually does work.
Okay.
So this particular dressing, it's a sort of looks like a conventional dressing that you put over the wound, but what it does is it's attached to a special pump. that then creates a vacuum around the wound. And the thought is that in creating that vacuum, it sort of draws the wound together. It removes fluid, excessive fluid, and then promotes a healing environment for the wound to heal more quickly from the bottom up. So that was the theory to that. And we compared that then to just standard dressings that didn't involve that sort of specific pressure component.
Yeah. So the negative pressure is sort of like a vacuum? Like
vacuum, vacuum dressing, absolutely.
Yeah. That sort of sucks out all the bad stuff. Is that
Yeah.
So it's not on it all the time, the vacuum?
It's on it all the time. So what it draws out of the wound goes into a canister, essentially, and that canister is replaced weekly or bi-weekly, depending on how much is coming off the wound.
So the idea is to try and speed up the process, I presume?
Yeah, and that was what SWHSI-II was looking at, was whether negative pressure wound therapy, this vacuum dressing, improves the time to wound healing.
Right, okay. So could you tell us a bit about the background to the project and sort of where the idea came from and why we're doing this?
So about 15 years ago, there was a project started that was looking at trying to understand more about these wounds. They, as I say, we found out they were quite common, but at the time that programme started, we knew very little about the wounds, how the best way to treat them, what dressings were effective, how common they were. So there was quite a big programme of work that ran for about 10 years, all in, that looked at understanding the background to these wounds and how common they were and what sorts of treatment were used and where perhaps treatments were being used that weren't effective. And as part of that, we found that negative pressure use was increasing in the NHS, but that there wasn't any robust evidence to support the fact that this actually did help the wounds to heal more quickly than conventional dressings.
Okay.
And there was a suggestion that actually the use of that particular dressing was really quite costly and actually didn't really improve wound healing. And so it was important for us to then go into a trial to evaluate the two treatments head to head to get a definitive answer as to whether it is a effective and cost-effective treatment for use in those types of wounds, or whether there are perhaps other alternatives that might be worth exploring.
Yeah, I guess because if it's being used already, you need to know that it works, and also if it doesn't really work, we shouldn't be spending lots of money on it, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And in terms of the wounds healing, I guess we hopefully want to find the best method to kind of speed up the healing. If you have a big surgical wound, you want it to heal as fast as possible and as well as possible. And I guess the slow healing has a big kind of impact on people.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you could expect, living with a wound that's open for quite a long time, we found that time to healing was about, I think, 86 days. So it's it's a really long period to be living with something that is open. It means that the wounds are more prone to infection, which means that you may be more likely to go back to hospital. And there's a real impact on patients' quality of life as well. They struggle to get out and do the things that they perhaps enjoyed before they had their surgery. The pump itself can be quite distracting when you're trying to sleep and things like that. So patients are really keen to see that their wound heals as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And so that was our kind of primary driver, and our key outcome of SWHSI-II was, could this dressing improve wound healing?
Yeah.
But we also looked at things like infection, return to hospital, and quality of life.
And what kind of operation? Was it only surgical wounds? And what kind of operations was it? Was it just sort of a bit of everything?
So it was only surgical wounds. So a wound where somebody had been taken to theatre and knife to skin, or where certain sorts of wounds had been taken back into theatre and sort of scraped back to fresh tissue. What we call
scraped back to fresh.
What we call debridement to promote the wound healing. It's it's a
Oh, is that a way of doing it? It just sounds awful.
No, it does. It does. We set out with SWHSI-II to evaluate all surgical wounds healing by secondary intention. So any wound that occurred anywhere on the body, provided it was appropriate to receive negative pressure, would be eligible for the study. But we really struggled with getting engagement from some particular surgical groups. And so ultimately the SWHSI-II trial has ended up being a predominantly vascular surgical specialty study.
What do you mean by vascular specialist?
So vascular is kind of around sort of, veins, blood flow. So predominantly, but not just, around sort of fixing, poor venous kind of supply in the legs, for example. And it also includes patients who have ulcers on their feet caused by diabetes.
Okay.
So that effectively the study has become a largely a study of patients with lower limb wounds.
Okay. Yeah, I guess problems with blood flow to certain tissues, and then that causes issues. Right. Okay.
Different specialties use the device for different reasons. So if you have an operation, say in your stomach or bowel, quite often they use that to kind of keep the wound clean rather than to promote healing. So because of the way that different surgeries use it, meant that we just couldn't get the engagement from groups in terms of healing, and some groups just were very set on the fact that this worked because they used it routinely, and we just couldn't get engagement sometimes.
So how does your project work?
So it was a randomised control trial. So patients who were eligible, so they had an open wound that was appropriate for negative pressure, were randomly allocated, randomly assigned to receive either the negative pressure dressing or the usual care dressing. And we just then followed the patients up for 12 months with weekly contact with patients to see how their wound was progressing in terms of healing. And then quality of life questionnaires at 3 months, 6 months and 12 months as well.
All right. So you followed them up for a year then?
Yes.
That's a nice long period to see how it was going, yeah.
Well, we knew from the original work that, as I mentioned, that healing was about 90 days. So and even then some people still hadn't healed. So we wanted to try and, capture a good period of time to understand more about the healing trajectory.
And so you asked them some questionnaires. What kind of things were you measuring?
So in the patient-reported questionnaires, we were looking at wound pain in the initial sort of follow-up, quality of life, whether the patient had been back to their GP, if they'd been back to the hospital, had they had any prescribed medications, and also a self-reported questionnaire around wound infection, which we were looking to test to see in the study if that was a good way of and a reliable way of collecting infection information.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Important to look at infections.
Mm-hmm.
And was the main thing you were looking at, was that the time it took to heal?
Time to healing was the primary outcome, and that was collected via this weekly contact between the nurse and the patient to understand, had they been told by the perhaps district nurse or community nurse, whoever it was that was going in to change the dressings, had they been told that the wound had healed? Had they needed to go back to hospital? Had they had to have any more surgery? What sorts of dressings were they using at that time?
And Sam, I think you know all about the kind of the wounds and the other outcome measures. So could you tell us about the more clinical outcomes?
So basically, we asked the sites to take pictures of their open wound to start off with. And this could be somebody's toes being cut off, half a foot being cut off. And so that's a really, really gory picture to come through on email. Now, I don't actually have a problem with it. I quite like gore, and I'm like, ooh, what's that? But quite a lot of the team were like, no, I'm going to open that email after lunch today, because I don't know whether that's a healed picture or an open wound. But yeah, we took pictures before, when they'd had the surgery and it was open, and then we had pictures when the wound was healed.
Right, okay.
So we can look at that and see whether...
Did you have to assess it then?
We took those pictures that we had that were healed, and we sent them off to blinded assessment.
Oh, right.
Now, the reason why we did that was because we couldn't really blind the patient to what they're having, what treatment they're having. And we didn't want the nurses or the doctors to say, actually, we prefer this product because we think it works better. So what we needed was like equivalent of a referee that was like going to be impartial to make a decision whether something had healed or not. And so what we used to do sort of once a month was send a batch of pictures of what the clinicians thought was healed to these blinded assessors. These assessors were highly trained tissue viability nurses who knew a wound at 100 paces, whether they were healed or not. So yeah, we used to send the pictures. Yeah. And so what used to happen, we'd send them a batch of pictures once a month and they would come back to us and say, it's healed, it hasn't healed, or we're unsure.
And when you say blinded, so they're not wearing blindfolds?
No.
Yeah, it's a term we use quite a lot, don't we?
Yeah, so basically, because the patients and the doctors and clinicians on site know that what the patients actually had done and what treatment they've had, we then send it to somebody who doesn't know what treatment they've had, and that is the reason why we call them blinded, because they don't know how it's been treated. We also, when we're asking them to do the visual picture to see whether they think it's healed or whatever, we also ask them whether they think they know what treatment the person's had.
Right, that's interesting.
Because there's can be a subtle difference between the two things.
Because so you might be able to tell from looking at the picture.
Yeah, because you might have a bit of sticky glue from the dressing, or with a vacuum, you've got like that suction action around the outside of the wound and things. Okay. So yeah, we asked them. Out of all the participants we sent them pictures of, they only guessed 2 right.
So that's pretty good then.
Yeah, that's good then. So then, they really are blinded. They really didn't know which treatment the patient had.
Yeah.
Yeah,
just
and that's important
pictures.
because we don't want anything to be biased.
In addition to kind of wound healing, we did also look at things like return to hospital, additional surgical procedures, need for amputation, wound infection, prescription of antibiotics, things like that, which are sort of key clinical outcomes in relation to the care of a wound and these dressings.
Yeah. I suppose that's important, isn't
it? That's very important, yeah.
Even if it took way less time to heal, but everyone ended up getting an infection or having to go back to hospital, that's no good, really, is it?
Absolutely.
Great. And you've got results.
Yes. So the results are out and publicly available, which is great. But in short, essentially, we found that although slightly more patients were allocated to receive the negative pressure dressing healed compared to those patients that received the sort of standard dressings, there wasn't any difference in the time that it took for the wounds to heal. So the negative pressure treatment, as far as we can see, doesn't make any improvement to the time of wound healing. What was interesting was that actually the patients who received negative pressure dressings were more likely to need to return to hospital, to have potential further operations, or to have had an infection that may or may not have required antibiotics. But on the converse, the patients that had the negative pressure dressing were less likely to need to have an amputation, or were less likely to pass away as a result of the wound. So quite a mixed sort of bag, really. Some positives, but some clear sort of negatives as well. So essentially, from the kind of clinical results, what we can say is that we wouldn't recommend negative pressure as the first line treatment for patients because it doesn't make any difference to the time that it takes patients' wounds to heal. We also looked at whether the treatment was cost effective or not, so good use of NHS money. And the way we did that was by looking at all of the available evidence that's out there about negative pressure for surgical wounds healing by secondary intention, and using all of that information to make or to run an analysis to evaluate that. And we found that by doing that negative pressure was more costly and less effective than usual care.
Right.
So it kind of correlates with the clinical results. And so we come back to that kind of, we don't recommend that negative pressure is used as a first line for healing of surgical wounds healing by secondary intention.
Oh, wow. That sounds like a really useful finding then for doctors when they're thinking about what kind of healing they're going to recommend. Maybe don't go for the negative pressure therapy. Stick to the normal bandages.
I think it will take time to convince the clinicians who have been very in favour of this. Anecdotally, when we started the study, will it work? So why do we need to evaluate it? So it will take time, I think, to see a shift change in that. But we hope that there will be a move towards that. I think it's important to say though that as I mentioned before, negative pressure can be used for lots of different reasons, not just healing. It might be to manage the fluid coming off a wound. It might be to just keep a wound area clean. We didn't evaluate that in SWHI-II, so there may still be legitimate reasons to use the treatment that aren't about healing.
Because I suppose you're basing it from a patient's perspective, whereas the clinicians are looking at it from a clinician's perspective.
Ultimately, time to healing is important for both patients and clinicians, because patients want to be able to get back to normal life. They want an improved quality of life and be able to do the things that they were enjoying to do before. And equally, from a clinical perspective, if your patient's wound has healed, you don't need to see them anymore. You can discharge them from your case.
So it's beneficial for both patients and clinicians.
Absolutely.
And they're thinking of the same thing, but they've got it in their head that this is a better. There's a name for that, isn't there? Isn't there a name?
So it's a term called equipoise, where there's an imbalance in terms of your perception of the particular intervention. And so we really struggled with equipoise in this study, because there was a real perception from a lot of people that negative pressure does work, it does heal wounds faster. So why wouldn't I just put that on my patient? So that was a real difficulty that we encountered in the study.
I think we find that quite a lot sometimes in research. You're kind of battling a bit against something that they think already works. But it's always good, even if the thing that you're testing doesn't turn out to be the more effective option. It's always good to have the evidence either way, really.
A no result is just as good as a yes result.
Definitely.
We have to find out that things don't work to find out that there are other things that do work, and vice versa.
It's all ads.
Yeah, and now we have the evidence for it, which is great. And your paper has been published if people want to read the full paper and get a much more detailed analysis of the results. That's out now. Where was that published?
It went into the Lancet.
In the Lancet, brilliant. So I'm sure you can find that, and we'll put a link to it in the show notes as well.
Fabulous.
To read the paper.
Read the paper, tells you everything.
Yeah.
It does.
And so when you were doing this trial, I think you learned quite a lot along the way. Is it fair to say you had a fair few challenges?
Absolutely. So we're going to kind of split these into three bits for you. A little bit about what we learned when we did our pilot phase. So most trials these days have a phase at the start of a study where we make sure that everything's working as we expect it to, and that we're meeting the targets that we should be. So we learned some things as part of that. We learned some things when we were doing the blinded outcome assessment that Sam's already mentioned. And we also learned some things about how we collect safety reporting, what we call adverse event information. So we've sort of got three kind of components to touch on.
Gosh.
So the first thing, or the one thing from me in terms of the pilot phase, so when we do pilot phases, we set specific criteria. We agree these with the funder at the start so that they have a measure at which to check that we are doing what we said we'd do in the time that we said we would do it. The key thing for me, I think, that I learned as part of doing this study was about the follow-up criteria that you use in a pilot phase. So if you're using a patient-reported questionnaire that you send to a patient, be that in the post or electronically, you can quite easily measure your response rate with that. And so you can say, well, we sent out 100 questionnaires, we've had 80 back, so we've got 80%, great, we're meeting our target. It's really difficult to do that when you've got a time to event outcome, so time to healing, because there's no defined point at which something will happen.
You're just waiting, really.
You're just
for
waiting
them to tell you that it's...
So we had a response rate criteria in our pilot phase that was about patient-reported questionnaires, but actually that wasn't relevant because that wasn't the primary outcome. So we were tying ourselves up in knots about, a lower response rate than we'd anticipated, when actually we had 100% healing data for the patients that had said that they'd healed. We had a date that they'd healed. So it's just a learning point for me is just it's really important to think about your pilot criteria, particularly when you're using time to event primary outcomes, and to just think about how you set that in terms of a criteria, if you set that at all.
And with the pilot criteria, is that where the first bit of the trial, the kind of pilot phase, if you don't meet that criteria, you might not actually be able to carry on with your trial?
Potentially, yes.
Yeah, so it's important.
It is important, So just a learning point from me. But there were a few other bits that we learnt in the pilot phase that I think Sabeen can probably fill us in on.
Yeah, Sabeen.
Sabeen, this is your time.
Over to you.
Yeah, so the key bits like that arise from the pilot phase that we learned that we probably need to improve to take them to the main trial was mainly to increase the enrolling as many as potential participant into this study, and also to improve the participant retention, that to keep the participant in the trial throughout the follow-up period. So for this, we adapted various strategies which proven to be fruitful. So in order to increase the participant recruitment, we plan then to open more sites than planned originally. So we start up and open 9 further additional sites than 20 that were originally planned to start up and open to recruitment. So these additional sites came from across the UK. So this also provided us the variety in the pool of the study participant we recruited. We also implemented 2 studies within a trial. So these were like the embedded studies within a main SWHSI-II host trial to evaluate and explore the efficient ways of delivering trial process, particularly the recruitment and retention. We introduced the use of infographic. That was a 1-page visual presentation of the study to participants. So we wanted to see if that helps at all in order to improve recruitment at site level.
So that was an infographic that went to participants, and did that just kind of explain the trial, but it looks nice, it's a visual
Yeah, it was sometime participant. We just wanted to see, because sometimes people do prefer just to read a brief information rather than having to read through the information that comprise of multiple pages. So
yeah, definitely. I prefer pictures.
Yeah, I prefer pictures.
We also introduces another study within a trial that was to test if that helps at all to improve participant retention, that is to keep a participant in the trial through the participation period. So we posted a thank you card or no thank you card to participant at month 4 and 9 before they receive their follow-up questionnaire. So we wanted to see if sending that thank you card helps at all in increasing the participant retention into the study.
Yeah. So was it half the people in the study got a thank you card, saying sort of, thank you for being in the study, thank you for doing your questionnaire, and then the other half wouldn't, and then you see whether the thank you card group were less likely to leave the study?
Yes, it was. So we just wanted to see, in the end, we compared both groups to see if that has any effects at all in returning the participant follow-up questionnaires.
But did you have any results for either of these 2 studies within a study?
We did have, actually. So for example, sending a thank you card or no thank you card, in the end, when we compared both groups, so we did not see any difference. So for example, we compare the return of completed 6-month follow-up questionnaire in both group, and the rate of returning of 6-month follow-up questionnaire was same in both group.
I see. So it didn't make any difference.
There was not a likely difference. Yeah.
And what about your infographic? Did that do anything?
It also had the same results, so it did not, actually fine. But again, these were studies within a trial, and in the end, we replicate studies within a trial. So rather than taking into account the individual results of one study within a trial, we do take account as a meta-analysis where we combine the results of multiple study within a trial, and we do take into account the results of that meta-analysis. So we still need to replicate these studies within a trial in other study, maybe in a different population, to have a bigger sample size and to explore further.
Yeah, we like studies within a trial.
Yeah.
If you've listened to our Implement SWOTs episode, plug that episode. We talk about those. But it's always good to do more than one, and then you can add all the results together in a meta-analysis, and that gives you a better idea of whether they maybe do work or don't work.
So doing that also, as I said, we adapted various strategies. So we also arranged bi-monthly site investigator meeting with all sites, where we invited the members from all sites to join us. And the aim was to share the best practice, top tips, any barriers to recruitment, or anything, intervention, for example, the delivery of treatment. So these meetings we also found were really useful at both ends for sites as well, and for us as well, just to work closely with the site We also arranged one-to-one remote meeting with the individual sites to encourage sites in the final push of recruitment and to maximize the recruitment activity in the final months. A site-specific newsletter was also developed and implemented. So in this strategy, we used to send a monthly newsletter to the sites, and it actually informed, it was a really kind of providing a steady recruitment update to the sites. It informed how much recruitment the site has made in that month in relation to their site target, the overall recruitment, where we are up to in this study. And that was a really kind of helpful update for our sites and us as well, to provide them as encouragement and motivation just to keep going and recruit as many as participants they can.
Sounds like you offered loads of support to your kind of research sites then.
Yeah, it sounds like, that you really gave them a lot of help, I think.
Yeah. So it sounds like maybe you faced a few challenges. Could you tell us a bit about those?
Yeah, of course. So I think the particular challenge that we came across during the conduct of trial was the occurrence of COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Again.
So as our recruitment, due to a result of that COVID-19 pandemic, our recruitment paused for about five months as a result of that. Yes, due to prioritizing, due to all the restrictions and of course pandemic. So the recruitment was paused. So some strategies were adapted and changes were made to some process then. So for example, we moved to conduct then remote site initiation visit instead of having a face-to-face on-site training. So as Catherine mentioned, we had like a weekly telephone follow-up in this study. So SWHSI-II team then took over the weekly telephone call follow-up from sites. So the sites can prioritize recruitment following the open to recruitment again. We also have had a low response rate to the follow-up questionnaires.
Right, okay. That's quite common. I think quite often we struggle to get people to complete their questionnaires and send them in to us.
Yeah, especially down the line when they are in the trial. So we introduced the further retention strategies to try and improve the response rate of those follow-up questionnaire. Among them, we included a pen. So we started, we started sending out a pen with each follow-up questionnaire. A study newsletter was also developed that was sent to the participant 2 weeks before their 6-month follow-up questionnaire was due. So we just wanted to keep participants up to date with the study and encourage them to return the completed follow-up questionnaire. We also introduced a follow-up call to the participant for those participants where we did not receive a response from the initial or reminder questionnaire, and that also really helped. We also sent a monthly email reminder to recruiting sites. So we ask sites during their weekly contact with the participants, please remind and encourage them to complete and return their postal questionnaire. So all these strategies has resulted to improve the response to follow-up questionnaire up to some degree.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, yeah. So they worked then. They did help.
They were. I think the other thing that was really important, and I think we used that, one of the reasons that we came to know why we're having a low response in the return of this follow-up questionnaire is came back from a participant. So they felt once their wound has healed, some of the questions might become irrelevant to them. So, for example, we had a question about wound infection. So for that does not seem relevant to them if the wound has already healed.
I see. So did that prevent them from completing them, you think?
We felt that might prevent them from completing it.
Yeah.
I see. So what did you do about that then?
So we made some changing to the way the questions or section were ordered in the follow-up case report form based on the participant response to data collection. So for example, we made some changing to the 3, 6 and 12-month questionnaire. So we placed the quality of life questionnaire at start of the booklet because that seemed to be relevant to all participants irrespective of the healing status.
I see.
Yeah, the quality of life questionnaire is hugely important to the cost effectiveness analysis because it allows us to sort of set a level playing field of whether patients' quality of life is better or worse in any condition. So you can compare the outcomes of a patient in a diabetes trial versus outcomes of a patient in a wound trial and the patients in an asthma trial.
Yeah.
So the quality of life measure was crucially important to us, being able to evaluate the cost effectiveness. And it was really for that reason that we kind of chose to move it to the front of the booklet, because it was towards the back, and we worried that patients were seeing the infection questionnaire and saying, well, that's not relevant to me. I don't need to complete the rest of the booklet. Stopping. Whereas actually putting that at the start and saying, well, and if your wound's still open, please complete the rest of it. We hoped that would be more efficient.
Oh, yeah.
So that makes sense. Yeah, so you change the order around a bit.
Yeah.
Yes, simple change, doesn't it? That makes a difference.
I think it's like just when you're designing questionnaires, thinking about the importance of your measures and whether there are particular things that are crucial to a particular component of the trial, and whether there are other bits that are nice but not crucial. And that sounds odd. I can appreciate that, because everything we collect should be useful, but actually prioritizing the quality of life measure because of the cost effectiveness was the better thing to do for the trial than focusing on the patient pain. We could collect that in different ways.
So one of your top tips then would be to think about the order in which you do your questionnaire.
Yeah, prioritise your primary outcome and then probably cost effectiveness, and then the other secondary outcomes, yes, are important, but are maybe less of a priority when you're looking at clinical and cost effectiveness of a particular intervention. They are secondary.
Yeah.
By their very name.
Okay, yeah, so quite a few challenges, but it sounds like you had some great solutions to your challenges.
And I think the important thing, just to kind of come in there, is to say that actually we're not very good as like researchers about sharing what works and what doesn't. And we have written up the sort of the findings, the challenges, and what we did as well, and had that published. And I think it's just a kind of another top tip, I guess, is don't sit on information. If you found things that work or things that don't work, sharing that information can be really important to kind of helping the future development of trials and trial efficiency. So it would be my kind of plea, I guess, to the research community.
Researchers listening, get it published.
Share your experiences, I think.
It helps everybody, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Sam, do you have any top tips?
Basically, have a really, really good instruction on how to take a photograph that you're wanting, but assume that sites are not going to follow it, because we had quite a lot of, about 40% of the pictures we had taken didn't have the photo card in there, which helps with matching an ID of the participant, But the main thing with blinded outcomes is the site needs to have the same definition and understand the definition of what is healed, because it seemed to be a bit of a mismatch between what a site was thought was healed and what the blinded assessors thought. We had quite a lot of the blinded assessors saying this wound isn't healed because there's a scab on it, there's a bit of red around it, there's a bit of pus, gunk. But also we had the issue of these participants were having more toes cut off or other bits taken off their foot. So we had the blinded assessors saying, which wound am I looking at when they were seeing the pictures? Right, okay. So definitely get that initial picture so that you know which is the primary wound that you're looking at. Other top tips is don't do it during COVID and ask your participants to take pictures, because we've got some lovely blurred pictures of foot with a lovely background of lovely sofa.
So before COVID then, would it be like a doctor taking the picture or a nurse?
Yeah, it was a clinician podiatrist. We even had the professional in-house photographer that would a medical photographer would take the photographs, whereas during COVID we were asking participants to take the picture. And
imagine the quality
depends on the
depends. It's difficult, isn't it, as well, trying to take a picture of your toes.
Which is probably why we got blurred pictures. And also quality of phone cameras varies, doesn't it? If you've just got a basic phone, the picture camera's not going to be as good as the camera we gave to sites.
I think patients, just to come in there, patients struggled with taking their own photographs, either because, like you say, they couldn't physically see the wound or there wasn't somebody around during the restrictions to help them do that. It might have been in an area that they just couldn't take. technological issue, but also for quite a number of patients who said, well, I would take it, but I can't send it back to you because I don't have email, I don't have access to the internet. Quite a significant proportion of the patients in the study were from socioeconomically deprived areas. So perhaps comes as no surprise, and particularly an older population. But just don't rely on patient photographs, I think would be the thing to say.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely good tip there. And Catherine, any tips from you for future researchers?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the other things that we kind of, found was quite difficult to manage was around what we call adverse events. So these are sort of untoward occurrences that patients have that happen as a result of them, having the treatment that's in the trial or being as part of the trial. So in SWHSI-II, we just asked for events that related to the wound itself or the two types of dressings. But we did get a lot of other things reported that didn't need to be reported. The patient had, banged their elbow or had the flu, for example. And that makes it really quite burdensome, both for sites and for us as a coordinating team to kind of manage those. So I think one of my top tips is always be really clear about what your definition is and reinforce that back to sites at any point. Encourage sites to make contact with you if they're unclear as to what they need to report, rather than sort of them reporting something and spending the time doing it that they then didn't need to do. To kind of help with that, it can be really helpful to put in a protocol a list of events that we think are likely to happen. It was what we call expected events. So being really clear about that and thinking really broadly about what that might entail, so that we've got a good list for sites to kind of go to can also really help in terms of sort of improving the reporting and the quality of it. The way in which we've collected adverse events, and I suspect many other research institutes do the same, is it tends to be free text. So just written response as to what's happened, why, when, how, and that in trials is really difficult to analyse. We like to have specific, what we call variables. So, the event was a wound infection. It was an amputation, for example, rather than a load of written information that we then have to kind of dissect. And I think our biggest learning, or my biggest learning from the SWHSI-II trial, was thinking about that right from the start of the study. Even if you can't predefine the types of events in a form, having an agile way to manage that so that you can better categorise them at the end of the study. The chief investigator and I spent an inordinate amount of time going line by line through each of these to say, well, is it an event that's about an infection? Is it an event that's about bleeding? Is it an event that's about the skin around the wound changing? So that we could group them for reporting. Yeah. So just thinking about that right at the very start, how can we better manage that? And I think that will come in time, but something really important to consider for the reporting and thinking about that right up at the front to save you some time and hard work and
definitely
all of
that
to
save the time.
The end. Absolutely.
Yeah, you've done it. Don't do what I did.
And so actually we have done that now in another study. We've set some criteria up from the start to allow us to better categorise those events when in 5-6 years' time we have to come and look at them and try and report them. We're going to try and make that easier. So we will see how that goes and good. Maybe report back at some point.
Yeah, we'll get you back to tell us.
Did it work? It'll definitely be improvement though, won't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much for going through all of that with us. That was really, really interesting. And great to have obviously all the kind of trial findings and what your project was, but also really good to hear from a more researcher point of view and have tips and challenges for other researchers. The next thing then we're going to do is we've got a bit of fun now. We've got our random researcher questions.
We have the hat that's been sat there all the time.
Don't be terrified of these.
Yeah, they're nice questions.
They're nice questions.
They're
really
supposed to be a bit of fun. So
we'll do a few. So Janine, do you want to pick one out the hat?
Okay, so what's the next big goal for your project?
There isn't really one for SWHSI-II. That's now come to an end. We're just about to do the final presentations of the results at conferences. So we've got 2 more to do, and then
There's no
we're done.
SWHSI-III, SWHSI-IV, SWHSI something else.
There is a SWHSI-III that is ongoing at the moment that's looking at how we evaluate quality of life, but more specifically for wounds rather than general quality of life, which was what we used in SWHSI-II. So we've got a PhD student looking at that at the moment. And we are also potentially going to look at doing a big review of all of the literature around negative pressure to try and better understand if there are particular groups or particular ways of using negative pressure that actually improve the effectiveness of it.
Okay.
So that's what's coming.
So there is
So there's a little bit there.
There is a little bit left, not fully finished. Okay, what's your go-to snack or drink when you're deep in research mode?
Don't really snack.
Oh,
You don't?
You don't snack?
Occasionally I have the urge to have barbecue flavoured hula hoops.
Ooh, very
There
good. Yeah, I like those.
Let's ask Sabeen.
Yeah, maybe fruits and nuts.
Oh, very healthy.
Oh, yeah.
Keep them handy.
Keep you going.
Catherine, do you have a favourite snack or drink?
Well, I think when I'm focused on what I'm doing, and even when I'm not, coffee.
Keeps you going.
Very good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is a good one, actually. If you could turn your project into a board game, what would it be called and how would it be played?
I feel like Operation springs to mind. Something like Operation.
Yeah.
Well, it could be a lovely gory game, couldn't it? Really, you know.
I think my gut feel is to say something like Snakes and Ladders, because I think wounds can progress and then regress. And so I think there's sometimes a lot of going up and down before we get to the final healing.
But that's a better one. It's a bit kinder, isn't it? Yeah, we don't want gory ones.
I can see you're nodding, Sam, so yeah.
Yeah, would you agree, Snakes and Ladders?
Yeah, definitely Snakes and Ladders.
Lots of ups and downs.
Lots of ups and downs, yeah.
Do you agree, Sabeen?
I would agree with the same. Yeah.
Oh, okay. If your research had a theme song, what would it be? I think SWHSI would fit quite nicely in a song. It's quite a nice word. I feel like things rhyme with SWHSI.
But you're going to ask her to do her
You don't need to invent a song.
Having listened to a couple of your podcasts, I knew this was a common one.
Ooh.
Common question.
She's done her research.
I've done my research. But it was this morning I came to it. It's because I was interested in blinded outcomes and things. I've gone with Pictures of You by The Cure.
Oh.
And how does that go?
Oh, don't ask me to sing it. Please don't ask me to sing it.
It's a good, I like that one.
You have to sing it. Very good. Yes, I like that one.
A prepared answer. We like it.
I like it. Yeah, because of all the photos that you've had to look at.
Yeah, it's a good one, isn't it?
The Cure.
Oh, and The Cure. Perfect.
We missed that. Oh, good grief. Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
Perfect. Well, should we stick with that one, or does anyone have any other ones?
I have nothing better to give. Well, I'm happy with that.
Well, thank you so much for coming to the research room and chatting to us today. We'll put all the kind of information about the trial in the show notes and the link to the paper, of course.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thanks for having us.
You're very welcome.
Bye.
Bye.